Galileo and Newton, and their discoveries of the laws of motion. Galileo Galilei was a very talented physicist, mathematician, astronomer, originator, and theorist. Galileo made fundamental contributions to astronomy, motion, and the scientific method. Galileo was born on February 15, 1564, in Pisa, Italy. Galileo obtained his education from the University of Pisa in 1581, where he initially studied medicine, but then became intrigued by physics and mathematics. Galileo was a gifted inventor and can take credit for the inventions of his very own telescope, the first pendulum clock, the thermometer, and the compass. Aside from his numerous inventions, Galileo shaped the first accurate laws of motion for masses. Galileo stated that all bodies accelerate at the same rate regardless of their size or mass. Galileo's conceiving statement came to be by an experiment he conducted. For this experiment, Galileo dropped two spheres of different weight off the edge of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. When Galileo did this experiment, he observed that both of the objects hit the ground at the same time, which led to his idea that all bodies accelerate at the same rate regardless of their size or mass. So in the picture on the left, we can see that the old idea was that the smaller the object was, the longer it took for the object to hit the ground, and the bigger the object was, the smaller amount of time it took for the object to hit the ground. Then on the right, we can see Galileo's idea, which was correct, that both objects will hit the ground at the same time, regardless of their size or mass. Other scientists built off of Galileo's ideas, one of which was named Sir Isaac Newton. As Galileo's life came to an end, Newton was only beginning. Sir Isaac Newton was an English scientist and mathematician who built off of Galileo's studies and used his knowledge of motion to create the three laws of motion. Sir Isaac Newton was born on January 4, 1643, in Colsterworth, United Kingdom. He received his education from Trinity College in Cambridge from 1661 to 1668, where Newton actually studied for a degree in law. Newton suffered from nervous breakdowns, and after the death of his mother in 1678, Newton entered 6 years of intellectual seclusion, where he only communicated with the briefest notes. Many people say that Newton discovered gravity, but this isn't completely true. What Newton really discovered, by observing an apple fall from a tree, is that gravity is a universal force that is not only confined to Earth, but also acts on other planets too. Other scientists at the time also assumed this. Newton is also known for compiling 3 laws that are used to explain and investigate the motion an object exerts. These 3 laws are known as Newton's 3 laws of motion. Newton's first law states that an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted on by an unbalanced force. An object in motion will continue in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted on by an unbalanced force. This law is also known as the law of inertia. So what does this mean? This basically means that an object will keep doing what it's doing unless some other force, makes it stop or change what it is doing. So in this picture, we can see an example of the first law of motion. So if that skateboard is skating towards a rock and it hits the rock, the skateboard will stop because the rock made it stop. The skater, on the other hand, has nothing there to stop it and no other force to change its motion. So the skater will keep moving and flying through the air off the skateboard until it hits the ground. Newton's second law states that acceleration is produced when a force acts on a mass. The greater the mass, the greater the amount of force needed to accelerate the object. So this law is probably one of the easiest to understand because everyone knows that heavier objects are going to take more force to be able to push than smaller objects. In this picture, we can see an example of the second law of motion. So in both of these images, the man is using the same amount of force to push the object, and the object on the left is heavier because it's the car, so it has a smaller acceleration, but the object on the right, which is the lawnmower, has a much higher acceleration because it is smaller and weighs less. Newton's third law states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So this basically means that if an object pushes another object, that object gets pushed back in the opposite direction equally hard. This picture is an example of the third law. So if this person steps off of the boat will actually move backwards in the opposite direction. So if the stick figure steps off the boat to the left, then the boat's going to move to the right. And how far it moves to the right depends on how much force it took for him to get off. So if he stepped off and pushed off really hard, then the boat's going to go a lot farther than if he would have just maybe taken a little baby step off. Galileo and Newton can both take credit for the creation of the laws of motion. Galileo made fundamental contributions to the three laws which Newton built on and compiled. These two scientists were both very important in shaping the science of motion we know today.